Okay, so get this.
Mm-hmm.
We're diving into a case today
Okay.
that's been making headlines for 6 years,
Wow.
and it's finally coming to a head.
Yeah.
It involves Mercedes Carrera,
Uh-huh.
a former porn star,
Right.
and some truly disturbing accusations
Yeah.
that could land her in prison for life.
This is a case that has a lot of people talking, and for good reason.
I bet.
The charges are very serious.
Yeah.
The legal battles have been intense,
Uh,
and the potential consequences are life-altering.
we've got court documents, witness testimonies,
Right.
and a whole lot of questions
Yeah.
surrounding this case.
A lot of questions.
Our mission today is to cut through the noise
Okay.
and get to the heart of what's going on.
I like that.
Cut through the noise, get
Yeah.
to the heart of it,
Mhm.
what's really going on.
We'll be examining the evidence,
Okay.
dissecting the legal arguments,
Right.
and exploring the wider implications of this case,
Uh-huh.
which touches on some pretty sensitive topics.
Yeah. So let's rewind back to February 2019,
Right.
when this whole saga began.
Right?
Mercedes Carrera and her husband, Daemon Cris,
Uh-huh.
were arrested at their apartment
Okay.
in Rancho Cucamonga, California.
Wow.
Now, here's where things get really intense,
Okay.
right from the start.
Yeah.
They were hit with 8 counts of sexual acts with a child under 10.
Under 10.
And the alleged victim was Carrera's own daughter
Wow.
from a previous marriage.
Jeez. Whoa. Okay, so we're not talking about some minor infraction here.
No,
These are incredibly serious charges right out of the gate.
absolutely. And to add to the shock,
What?
during the police raid,
Yeah.
they found methamphetamine
Oh, wow.
and 2 loaded handguns
Okay.
in the apartment.
So on top of everything else,
Right.
they were also facing drug and weapons charges.
They were.
And this apartment, it wasn't just their home, right?
No, what?
They were using it as a studio to film adult content.
That's correct.
And according to some sources,
Mm-hmm.
the child was sometimes present in the apartment while they were filming,
Oh, wow.
though apparently in a different room.
That just adds another layer of unsettling context
It
in
does.
this situation.
Yeah, it raises a lot of questions about the environment this child was living in.
Right.
Drugs, firearms,
Yeah.
and adult film production all happening under one roof.
Yeah. It
H-
paints a pretty disturbing picture, to say the least.
Yeah.
So we've got the arrest,
Uh-huh.
these incredibly heavy charges,
Right.
and a home environment
Yeah.
that raises a lot of red flags.
Mm.
What happened next?
Well, during a preliminary hearing,
Okay.
a crucial piece of evidence came to light.
Okay.
An audio recording
Uh-huh.
of the child's testimony.
Oh, wow.
In this recording,
Okay.
she describes what she called cuddle sessions
Cuddle sessions.
with Carrera and Cris,
Oh, God.
where she was allegedly touched inappropriately on multiple occasions. She also described at least one incident of digital penetration.
That's horrifying.
It is.
And this testimony came directly from the child herself.
Yes, from the child herself.
So,
Her interview with a San Bernardino sheriff's deputy was recorded,
okay.
and that recording became a central part of the prosecution's case.
Uh-huh.
It's her account of what happened.
Right.
And the legal process is now tasked with determining the validity of these allegations.
Right. Innocent until proven guilty.
Exactly.
But hearing that, it
Yeah.
must have been a turning point in the case.
It was.
So with this new information,
Yeah.
did the charges change at all?
They did.
Okay.
The methamphetamine and firearm possession charges were dropped,
Interesting.
but 2 new, more serious charges were added.
Okay.
One count of PC 288.7 AF,
Okay.
which refers to sodomy with a victim under 10 years old,
Uh-huh.
and 10 counts of PC 288.7 BF,
10 counts.
oral copulation with a victim under 10.
Okay, so we need to unpack these new charges.
Yes, we do.
What exactly do they mean? And why are they considered so much more serious than the initial ones?
These charges fall under what are called super strike offenses in California.
Super strike.
Yes,
That sounds intense.
it is.
Okay.
These are offenses that are deemed so severe
Uh-huh.
that even if it's the person's first offense,
Oh, wow.
they could be facing a life sentence.
Wow. So no second chances with these types of charges.
No,
It seems like California really wanted to make a statement with these laws.
they absolutely did.
Yeah.
These laws were put in place to protect vulnerable children
Right?
and send a clear message that these types of crimes will not be tolerated.
So let's break down exactly what actions are covered by these new charges.
Okay.
What does PC 288.7A and B actually entail?
So PC 288.7A
Uh-huh.
specifically refers to sexual intercourse or sodomy with a child under 10.
Okay.
Carrera is facing one count of this.
And if I remember correctly, she's facing 10 counts of PC 288.7b, right?
That's right.
Okay.
This one covers oral copulation or sexual penetration with a child under 10.
Yeah.
And it's worth noting that the legal definition of sexual penetration is very broad.
Right.
It includes any intrusion, even slight,
Okay.
with any object or body part.
Okay, so we're talking about a range of acts,
We are.
all of which are considered extremely serious in the eyes of the law.
Yes.
And because these are super strikes,
Right.
we're potentially talking about life in prison,
Potentially.
even if Carrera hasn't committed any other felonies.
Exactly.
Right.
And the fact that there are 10 separate counts of PC 288.7b
Yeah.
indicates that the prosecution believes there were multiple instances of abuse happening over a period of time.
This is a lot to process.
It is.
I can only imagine what's been going through Mercedes Carrera's mind during all of this.
You and everyone else watching this case unfold, right?
Yeah.
From the moment those charges were filed,
Mm-hmm.
she has maintained her innocence.
Right. Claiming the accusations are completely fabricated.
That's right.
Yeah.
She claims her ex-husband, the child's father,
Right.
is behind these accusations,
Oh, okay.
alleging he's a fundamentalist Christian who wants to destroy her reputation
Mhm.
and gain full custody of your daughter.
So she's suggesting this is all a personal vendetta,
She is.
a way to use the legal system to punish her for her past
Uh-huh.
and take her daughter away.
Yes.
That's her defense.
That is her defense.
But it's not quite that simple.
No, it's not.
There's another layer to this story that we need to discuss.
There is.
Okay, I'm all ears.
All right.
What else is there?
Well, witnesses who knew the couple have come forward,
Okay.
and what they have to say paints a concerning picture.
What kind of picture?
Oh,
Can you
well.
give us some details?
These witnesses claim that they were aware of male performers staying at the apartment
Okay.
and that adult content was being filmed while the child was present,
Right.
even though she may have been kept in a separate room.
Right. We touched on that earlier.
Yeah.
But it's worth emphasizing.
It is.
It's not illegal to film adult content, even if a child is present in the home,
Correct.
but it does raise some serious ethical questions.
It does.
And potentially even legal ones,
Yes.
depending on the circumstances.
Exactly. And it adds to the overall complexity of this case.
Yeah.
We have the child's testimony,
Mm-hmm.
extremely serious charges,
Right.
a custody dispute,
Yeah.
and a living environment that many would consider inappropriate for a child.
Right.
There's a lot to unpack here.
There is.
There is.
And we haven't even gotten to the fact that this case has been dragging on for 6 years.
Yeah.
With delay after delay.
Delay after delay.
You're absolutely right.
The numerous delays are a crucial part of this story.
Yes.
And most of them can be attributed to defense motions.
Yes, right.
So are you saying Carrera and Cris have been intentionally trying to push back the trial?
While the specific reasons for each delay aren't always crystal clear, the information available points to the defense being responsible for a significant portion of them.
There have been over 15 court hearings in 2024 alone.
Wow.
And we're still waiting for the trial to actually begin.
6 years is a long time.
It is.
It makes you wonder what impact that has had on everyone involved,
Yeah.
especially the child at the center of it all.
It's hard to imagine the emotional and psychological toll these delays have taken.
Yeah.
Living in limbo for that long,
Yeah.
not knowing what the future holds,
Mm.
it must be incredibly stressful for everyone involved.
And then there's the financial burden of a 6-year legal battle,
Yes.
legal fees,
Yeah.
court costs,
Uh-huh.
lost income.
Absolutely.
It all adds up.
It certainly does.
And in this case where both defendants have been incarcerated this whole time,
yes.
they haven't even had the opportunity to work and support themselves financially.
Right.
The costs, both emotional and financial, are
Yes, I mean,
significant.
They are significant.
This case is already proving to be a wild ride.
It is.
And we've only just scratched the surface.
We've just scratched the surface.
But before we dive any deeper,
Okay.
let's take a quick pause.
All right.
We'll be right back to dissect the legal arguments,
Okay.
examine the evidence, and explore the potential outcomes of this captivating case.
Stay tuned because this deep dive is just getting started.
We'll be right back after a short break.
All right, so let's pick up where we left off.
Okay.
And take a closer look at the charges against Carrera and Cris.
All right.
You might be wondering why those initial drug and firearm charges were dropped,
I was just thinking that.
especially considering the circumstances.
Yeah, it seems strange to just let those slide. given they found meth and loaded guns in the apartment?
Well, the details are a bit hazy,
Okay.
but from what we can gather,
Uh-huh.
the gun charges were dropped
Okay.
because it was later determined that the firearms were actually not loaded at the time of the raid.
Really?
Yeah. Seems there might have been some initial confusion
Okay.
or misreporting about the guns.
Interesting. Okay, so maybe the gun situation wasn't as initially reported.
Right.
But what about the meth?
Yeah.
That feels like a pretty serious charge to just drop altogether.
You'd think so, right?
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, the prosecution chose to concentrate solely on the sexual assault charges.
Okay.
This actually isn't uncommon in cases with multiple charges.
Right.
Sometimes prosecutors will strategically drop the less serious charges to streamline the case and focus their resources on the most severe accusations.
That makes sense from a legal strategy perspective.
It does.
But still, it's hard to ignore the fact that there were drugs and firearms in the home,
Sure.
even if they're not directly part of the charges being pursued.
Right.
It definitely paints a certain picture.
It absolutely does.
Right.
And it's something the defense might try to use to their advantage, arguing that it reflects poorly on Carrera and Chris's judgment and character,
Fair.
even if those specific charges were dropped.
Right. It adds to the overall narrative.
Right.
Regardless of the legal technicalities.
It does.
So let's zero in on those remaining charges.
Okay.
The ones that could potentially land Carrera in prison for life.
Right.
We're talking about PC 288.7A and B, which you called super strike offenses.
Right.
Can you remind us what that means?
Yeah.
And why these charges carry such severe penalties?
Absolutely. In California, super strike offenses are a special category.
Okay.
They're designed to trigger a life sentence,
Wow.
even without any prior serious felony convictions.
So even if this is their first offense,
Yes.
they could be looking at spending the rest of their lives behind bars.
That's the potential consequence.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
And to make matters even more serious,
Uh-huh.
with PC 288.7 offenses,
Okay.
there's no possibility of probation,
Okay.
split sentences, suspended sentences, or even the typical sentence reductions for good behavior that you might see with other crimes.
Wow. It sounds like California lawmakers really wanted to come down hard on these types of crimes.
They did.
Yeah.
The intent behind these laws is to protect vulnerable children
Right.
and deter these horrific acts. The severity of the penalties reflects the seriousness of the offenses
Okay.
and the devastating and lasting trauma they can inflict on victims.
I can see why these are considered such serious offenses.
Yeah.
Now, to be absolutely clear for anyone listening,
Sure.
what specific actions do these charges cover?
So PC 288.7A
Okay.
specifically deals with sexual intercourse or sodomy with a child under 10.
Right.
Carrera is facing one count of this charge.
And 10 counts of PC 288.7B.
That's right.
Is that right?
Yes, that's correct. PC 288.7B covers oral copulation or sexual penetration with a child under 10.
Okay.
It's important to remember that sexual penetration,
Right.
legally speaking, has a pretty broad definition.
Yeah.
It includes any kind of intrusion,
Right.
no matter how slight, by any object or body part.
So these charges encompass a wide range of potential acts,
Yes, they do.
all of which are considered extremely serious under California law.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that there are 10 separate counts of PC 288.7B
Right.
suggests that the prosecution believes there were multiple incidents of abuse, potentially occurring over a period of time.
And with each count carrying a potential sentence of 15 years to life.
Wow.
If Carrera is convicted on all 11 counts,
Yeah.
she could be facing a sentence that essentially amounts to life in prison.
That's the stark reality of the situation.
Yeah.
These charges are incredibly serious,
Uh-huh.
and the potential consequences are severe.
It's mind-boggling to think about.
It is.
Facing such overwhelming accusations.
Yeah.
What kind of defense can someone even mount against charges this serious?
Yeah, it's tough.
What strategies might Carrera's legal team be using?
It's a tough situation to be sure.
Yeah.
But one common approach in these kinds of cases is to challenge the credibility of the accuser.
Okay.
Remember, Carrera's claiming that her ex-husband is the mastermind behind these allegations,
Yeah.
suggesting that he coached their daughter to lie
Uh-huh.
or exaggerate the truth as part of a custody battle.
Right. She's claiming that this is all a plot to tarnish her reputation and
Yes.
keep her from her daughter.
Exactly.
But how could they possibly prove something like that in court?
It wouldn't be easy.
Yeah.
They would need to provide solid evidence to back up their claims.
Okay.
Things like inconsistencies in the child's statements,
Right.
evidence of coaching or manipulation,
Right.
or testimony from other witnesses who could cast doubt on the accusations.
Okay.
They might also try to bring in evidence about the father's character and his motives,
Uh-huh.
perhaps painting a picture of him as vindictive and unreliable.
So essentially, they're trying to shift the focus away from the alleged acts themselves
Right.
and onto the motivations and the credibility of the people making the accusations.
That's a common strategy in cases like this.
Right.
It can be extremely difficult to directly refute allegations of abuse,
Uh-huh.
especially when the victim is a child.
Mm.
So the defense often tries to create reasonable doubt
Okay.
by suggesting that there are ulterior motives at play.
It's a risky move, though, isn't it?
It is.
They have to walk a very fine line.
Yes, they do.
They need to raise doubts about the accusation
Right.
without coming across as if they're blaming or discrediting the child,
Right.
which could really backfire with the jury.
You're absolutely right. It's a delicate balance.
Yeah.
They need to thread that needle carefully.
Uh-huh.
It's a high-stakes legal gamble,
Yeah.
and the outcome is far from certain.
And then there's Daemon Cris to consider.
Right.
He's facing the same charges as Carrera,
Mhm.
plus that additional charge of possessing a weapon in prison.
Yes.
What impact could that have on his case?
That weapon charge definitely adds another layer of complexity to his situation.
Right.
While it's a separate issue from the sexual assault charges,
Mm-hmm.
it could influence how the jury perceives him.
Okay.
It might make them more likely to believe he's capable of the acts he's accused of.
Right, like a sort of halo
Yeah,
effect where
right.
one negative action casts a shadow over everything else.
Precisely. And even if it doesn't directly affect the jury's decision on the sexual assault charges,
Mm-hmm.
it could result in a harsher sentence if he is convicted.
Right.
Possessing a weapon in prison is taken very seriously,
Yeah.
and judges don't tend to be lenient in those situations.
So Chris is in a really tough spot,
He is.
facing a potential life sentence for the sexual assault charges,
Uh-huh.
plus additional time for the weapons charge.
It's a difficult situation.
Yeah.
And it really underscores the gravity of the accusations and the potential consequences if he's found guilty.
This whole case has been dragging on for 6 years now.
It has.
With all these delays and legal maneuvers.
Right.
It's hard not to wonder about the impact this drawn-out process has had on everyone involved.
It's important to remember that our justice system is designed to be thorough and deliberate.
I understand that.
Cases involving such serious allegations, particularly when children are involved,
Right.
take time to investigate and prosecute properly.
But 6 years,
I know.
that does seem like an exceptionally long time.
It is.
It makes you wonder if the system is really functioning as efficiently as it should.
It's a valid concern.
Mm.
These repeated delays
Yeah.
have understandably caused frustration
Right.
and raised questions about the pace of justice, while some delays are unavoidable
Yeah.
due to the inherent complexities of the legal process.
Sure.
Others might be the result of strategic maneuvering by the defense
Right.
or even inefficiencies within the court system itself.
And the toll these delays take on everyone involved.
Yes.
It must be immense.
Absolutely. The emotional and psychological strain
All right.
on the accused, the alleged victim,
Mm-hmm.
and their families is significant.
Right.
Being stuck in this legal limbo for such an extended period,
Yeah.
it's incredibly stressful and disruptive to everyone's lives.
And it's not just the emotional toll, is it? There are the financial costs as well.
Of course.
Legal fees,
Yes.
court costs,
No.
lost income.
Absolutely.
It all adds up.
You're right. The financial burden can be absolutely crippling,
Yeah.
especially for those who are already struggling.
Uh-huh.
And in this case, both defendants have been incarcerated for 6 years,
Right.
unable to work and support themselves.
Yeah.
The costs, both emotional and financial,
Yeah.
are a heavy burden to bear.
So it's not just about whether they are ultimately found guilty or innocent.
Right.
It's about the impact of the process itself.
It is.
It can be incredibly damaging regardless of the outcome.
That's a crucial point.
Yeah.
The wheels of justice can turn slowly,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes that slowness comes at a very steep cost for everyone involved.
Okay, we've talked in depth about the charges,
Right.
possible defense strategies,
Yeah.
the delays,
Uh-huh.
and the broader impact of this long legal battle.
Mhm.
As we wrap up this part of our deep dive, is there anything else you want to highlight for our listeners?
I think
What are some of the key takeaways from what we've discussed so far?
one of the most striking things about this case is how it forces us to confront some uncomfortable realities.
Huh.
Here we have a former porn star
Right.
facing accusations of child sexual abuse,
Yeah.
a bitter custody dispute,
Right.
and a legal system grappling with a highly complex and sensitive case.
Yeah.
It's a situation that challenges a lot of our preconceived notions
Right.
and forces us to have some tough questions.
It does.
Questions about morality, about justice,
Yeah.
and about how we protect the most vulnerable members of our society.
It's definitely a case that resists easy answers or simple solutions.
It does.
And I think that's a big part of what makes it so captivating.
I agree.
Even after all these years, there's so much to unpack.
Right.
And it really makes you think.
It does. It's one of those cases that stays with you long after you've heard about it. It prompts reflection and raises questions that linger.
With the trial finally scheduled to start in December,
Yes.
we're bound to see a surge of renewed interest and scrutiny
Oh, yeah.
as the details of this case are laid bare in the courtroom.
They will be.
It's going to be fascinating, to say the least.
It will be. It'll be interesting to see how the legal arguments play out,
Right.
what evidence is presented, and ultimately how the jury reaches its verdict.
Yeah.
The stakes are incredibly high,
They are.
and the outcome will have a significant impact, not just for Carrera and Cris,
Right.
but potentially for how we as a society
Yeah.
think about and address these types of cases in the future.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground today.
We have.
We've talked about the charges,
Right.
the evidence,
Yes.
the legal battles,
Right.
and the potential outcomes in this incredibly complex and controversial case.
Yes.
But we're not done yet.
And we're not. We're just getting started.
In the next part of our deep dive.
We'll explore the broader societal questions this case raises.
Okay.
We'll examine the intersection of personal and professional lives, the complexities of child protection,
Right.
and the challenges of navigating our legal system when it comes to these sensitive issues.
This case has been unfolding for 6 years.
It has.
And as we get closer to the trial, the stakes are higher than ever.
They are.
Stay with us as we delve even deeper into the heart of the Mercedes Carrera case. All right, so we've spent a good amount of time unpacking the specifics of the Mercedes Carrera case, the charges, the evidence, the legal back and forth.
Right.
But as we head into the final stretch of this deep dive,
Okay.
I'm curious about something you mentioned earlier about this case raising broader societal questions.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate on that for me?
Sure.
What are some of the bigger issues at play here that go beyond the courtroom?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And it's something that's been on a lot of people's minds as they followed this case.
Yeah.
One of the most prominent themes that emerges is the intersection of personal and professional lives.
Okay.
Particularly when someone is a public figure.
Right.
Mercedes Carrera was a porn star.
Right.
And those two worlds have collided in a very dramatic and controversial way. It forces us to think about how we perceive and judge individuals who work in the adult entertainment industry, especially when serious accusations like these surface.
You're right.
Yeah.
It really challenges our assumptions and biases.
Yeah,
It's
that's right.
easy to jump to conclusions based on someone's profession.
Right.
But at the end of the day, everyone deserves a fair trial and the presumption of innocence,
Absolutely.
regardless of their background or what they do for a living.
Absolutely. And this case also shines a light on the complexities of child protection.
Oh.
We're dealing with a situation where a child was allegedly exposed to an adult environment
Right.
that most people would agree is inappropriate and potentially harmful. It raises some tough questions about parental responsibility,
Okay.
the boundaries between adult and child spaces, and the legal and ethical implications when those boundaries become blurred.
It's a reminder that child protection isn't always black and white.
No, it's not.
There are gray areas.
Yeah.
And this case definitely falls into one of those gray areas.
It does.
It's not simply about whether a crime was committed,
Yeah.
but also about the overall well-being of the child.
Of course.
And whether their environment was truly safe and nurturing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then we have the challenges of navigating the legal system itself, particularly when it comes to accusations of sexual abuse.
Right.
As we've seen, these cases can become incredibly intricate and contentious,
Yeah.
often involving conflicting accounts,
Right.
emotional testimonies, and a high burden of proof.
Yeah.
It's a system that's constantly evolving,
Right.
striving to find a balance between protecting victims and safeguarding the rights of the accused.
It's a delicate balance, for sure. And with this case,
Right.
with its numerous delays and legal maneuvers,
Yeah.
it really highlights how the system can get bogged down
Yeah.
and how justice can be delayed, which, as we've discussed, can be incredibly frustrating and stressful for everyone involved.
No doubt about it.
Yeah.
And it's important to remember, that the impact of these cases extends far beyond the walls of the courtroom.
Absolutely.
They can send ripples through families, communities, and even society as a whole.
Yeah.
They compel us to confront uncomfortable truths and wrestle with complex questions about morality, accountability, and the very nature of justice.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into the Mercedes Carrera case, I want to leave our listener with something to really think about. We've examined the charges, the evidence, the legal maze.
Yes.
But at the end of the day, it all comes down to this. How do we as a society balance the presumption of innocence with the seriousness of these allegations?
That's the question.
Yeah.
That's at the heart of it all, isn't it?
What would a truly just outcome look like in a case as complicated as this?
And there's no easy or straightforward answer.
Right.
It requires us to carefully weigh the evidence, to consider the legal principles involved, and to acknowledge the very real human impact this has on everyone involved.
Yeah.
It's a challenge that our justice system, and indeed all of us as a society, continue to grapple with.
You're right.
Yeah.
It demands ongoing dialogue, critical thinking,
absolutely,
and a willingness to engage with these tough issues, even when they make us uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Ultimately, the pursuit of justice is a journey, not a destination.
Well said.
And we all have a part to play in ensuring that it's fair, equitable, and truly serves its purpose.
Beautifully said.
Yeah.
The Mercedes Carrera case serves as a stark reminder that justice is a complex and multifaceted concept.
It is.
As this case unfolds, it will be fascinating to see how it shapes our understanding of these issues.
Yeah.
And what valuable lessons we can learn from it.
I agree. And for our listener, I encourage you to continue following this case and its developments.
Absolutely.
Stay informed.
Stay engaged.
Stay engaged, and don't shy away from asking those tough questions.
That's how we learn.
That's how we learn, grow, and contribute to a more just and equitable world.
Grow and contribute.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Remember, there's always more to uncover, more perspectives to consider, and more to learn.
Yeah.
Keep diving deep.
Keep diving deep.
Keep questioning.
Keep questioning.
Keep searching for that deeper understanding.
This deep dive may be over.
Yes.
But the conversation certainly isn't.
That's right.